Hello friends, this is Kagi, and today we have an overview of the pros and cons of a bike like the Honda X. Yes, I've been asked to make this particular bike for a long time, and I'm honestly hiding some kind of a little love for this motorcycle, although unfortunately I have never possessed it. Probably hardly I will possess it for some reasons, which I will probably mention later. Basically, a lot of people know what kind of motorcycle it is. A big legend, a dragster that was presented in 1997, or rather in 1995, it was presented at the Tokyo show. In 1997, he started his own production. Initially, it was only a domestic motorcycle. Then it has already begun to be sent to the United States of America, to Europe, and it received a certain LD prefix. Of course, it's a little bit lower, the saddle a little different, rear suspensions, a slightly different front brake disc in the design, but in general it's not much different. And of course we all know this motorcycle has an engine from the CB1300 codename. Basically it originally had the CB1300 DC. There were several modifications, nothing special. The motorcycle is quite rare, that is, few people ride it. It was manufactured from 97 to 2003. It has a steel frame, naturally a 4-row engine, 1300 cubic centimeters, and what's most interesting, 100 horsepower at 6500, 121 newton meters at 500, a 5-speed gearbox, which is not enough, as always. The weight of the motorcycle is 249 empty and 270 with luggage, which is quite a lot. The maximum speed is 180, due to restrictions, of course. The acceleration to 100 takes 4 seconds, which is also not the best indicator. I will tell you later what is what and why. Basically, these are dry technical data. The fuel consumption is about 9 liters. In terms of cost, it's more or less a reasonable unit. You could buy one for 250,000 rubles. You can find them even for less than 200,000, but those are such heaps of junk, it's better not to get involved with them at all. I think we should move on to the pros and cons of this motorcycle, starting with the negatives. The first major downside is the small tank, a 15-liter one, that with a consumption of around 9 liters is barely enough for a short distance. And this is indeed one of the biggest challenges for people who travel long distances. So sometimes they modify it, sometimes they have to carry cans along or equip their motorcycle with some external tank. I've got an acquaintance who writes on the bike post. He rides an X4 year-round. He has an external tank. Also, he has a small sort of vacuum pump. He rides with a can. Naturally, he has a sidecar and all the gear. He rides in the winter too, and these motorcycles are actually widely used for various winter expeditions, strangely enough. Although they are carbureted and not really winter compatible. The second drawback is the weak brakes and suspension, and indeed the suspension is probably one of the weakest points of this motorcycle, particularly the front suspension. It often fails. Either change it by replacing the spring with a stiffer one, or by integrating a cartridge, or the fork itself is changed in its entirety. Weak brakes. This is also a scourge of such dragsters, in fact the same as the VMAX. It also has weak brakes, but again the X4's brakes are better than VMAX's, but it's still not enough. They are working at their limit. The third negative inherent to Honda is the relay regulator. Yes, you can't make a motorcycle at Honda without the regulator breaking. The regulator overheats, the contacts overheat. You therefore need to keep an eye on them, particularly when buying there from Japan, for example. If no one has been in there before you, check what's what. And many even suggest just soldering the wires from the chip to the regulator relay and then just change it when it burns out. But it's better. Actually, it's better to just keep an eye on the chips and keep them in good condition. The fourth shortfall, this is the consequence of falls. The motorcycle is designed in a special way, and let's say the side tubes which stick out from the back straight with 2 such machine guns, unfortunately you can't get away from them, and in any case you will be caught if you fall. It is almost impossible to protect them. There are only some trunks to make or something else. The engine covers also cling in the front, so you need to put arcs. Again, arches, if you install them, they're put in the engine mount of the covers and can fall off. So there's also an ambiguous question. The dashboard often gets damaged during a fall. Of course, you should also protect it somehow with a small fender or something like that. Moving on to the pros, the first plus is of course reliability. Probably doesn't need explaining that Honda is one of the most reliable motorcycles on the market. Surprisingly enough, even the simplest ones, honestly. No matter how you spin it, this motorcycle is very reliable. I know people who have put 115,000 kilometers on this motorcycle. Think about it, 115,000 kilometers. The motorcycle went through without a single breakdown, excluding the regulator relay. That is, they changed the regulator relay. Just imagine there's this guy right now, his butt's probably on fire and his couch is burning because my blanket that I sit on burned after 115,000 kilometers, whereas my car hasn't lasted as long as this motorcycle. This isn't the top speed. They really rack up the miles on these because it's such a massive engine. It's liquid cooled. And another advantage is the acceleration moment. Yes, as I said, it's worth noting it has 120 nanometers. Of course, there aren't that many horsepower in this motorcycle, only 100. The VMAX has 125 nanometers, and here 120, meaning actually a very, very good resource in terms of torque is taken from this engine. It accelerates quite spiritedly, of course, 4 seconds to 60 miles per hour. That's pretty lethargic considering you have 100 horsepower, but once again guys, 270 kilograms. The weight definitely takes its toll, no matter how you look at it. Sure, you can start bragging about how 4 seconds are just astronomical numbers, but in reality for a motorcycle like this and the task it was designed for, 4 seconds is, yeah, a lot. Not infinity of course, but a lot considering that the Yamaha VMAX 1200 with 145 horsepower has 3.1 seconds acceleration time. 3.1, that's a whole second difference. In the gaps in between, they're 4.3 seconds. 0.100 for a motorcycle is a huge difference. It's really large, and you can understand why that is, because there is roughly 30% more power for the VMAX in. Sure, the X4 can't compete, but it has really good torque, really great acceleration. And for the average rider who's never known what it's like to ride fast, it'll feel very fast. The third plus is the seating position compared to the VMAX. The X4 seating is more comfortable. It has a nice big saddle. Overall, the seating is closer to something like a Roadster or something. You're not hunched over like on a cruiser. The seating position is upright and comfortable, which is a big plus. And let's not forget about the side bolsters. They're great, like some kind of a chair in the saddle, which keeps you from flying off during acceleration. And the last plus, the fourth plus, is the design. Yeah, I set it apart because honestly, I really like the design of the X4. I really like the exhaust solution with two such pipes of a very interesting shape. If you've noticed the X, 4 rear brake caliper is at the bottom, not at the top, like usual with motorcycles. This also gives it a certain charm. Well, in principle, the bike looks quite interesting. I don't really like the VMAX in design due to the fact that it has a caster fork. It's a little flatter angle more. Because of this, it seems to me that the wheel somehow looks separate from the motorcycle. Unlike the X4, in the X4 it looks just held together in terms of design. I really like it. And the dashboard is made on, normally they're like Yamahas where you won't be able to see your devices in the integral because they're on the tank and your chin is closed. Yeah, it's a lot of positive things here. The box is awesome in general. In general, this is not a motorcycle. You have to choose it with numbers on paper. This is not what a motorcycle is about, because if you do, you will choose the VMAX if you choose with numbers on paper. This is a very charismatic motorcycle. It has its own individual style which belongs only to it. And it's very, very strange in all places. I mean, it looks like it was made as a dragster to compete with the VMAX, but it absolutely can't compete with it. It's like neither a cruiser nor a street bike, because 270 kilograms for a street bike. No, thank you. It's a truly unique motorcycle. If you like X4, you'll like X4. As I said before, it isn't taken based on some objective criteria and profitable pros and cons. I personally like this motorcycle. I'd honestly like one in my dream garage, maybe someday when I get rich. That is generally, you get my position. I just like weird motorcycles that don't really have any super great advantages, but are still unique and kind of crazy. They make you want to... But they screwed up and made an entirely different bike that has a huge number of fans. Again, I like its design a lot more than the VMAX. Anyway, I'm KG. Subscribe and comment if you have an X. Maybe I said something wrong, or maybe I said something right and opened your eyes.